I always say the secret to marketing success is making better, more strategic marketing decisions. And that starts with kind of what we just talked about, the critical marketing triangle. It's like, make sure you're making good marketing decisions. Don't spend time on things that aren't working. Now, you and I have had this, we've heard this thing before about diversity creates stability. And that is, you have to be doing multiple things simultaneously, and everything will be kind of like a mutual fund. If you know anything about the financial market and mutual fund, you have different risks of companies in the market. Some are very strong, some are kind of weak. They're all giving off a little bit different, yield or result. And that's what's going to happen. When you go to a networking event, you might meet one person that week. The next week you might meet two. The next week you might get zero. When you do a direct mail piece, you might get 10 responses, or you'll get 5 responses, or you get, everything's going to be working to different degrees. But you got to have multiple things working simultaneously. The other thing is, don't get suckered in by someone trying to sell you something. Stay away from shiny objects. Shiny objects include the media, people coming out and trying to sell you media. But, just stick to one thing and ask for help.
Welcome to the $1 Million Equation Podcast, a podcast about the easiest, fastest way to build $1 million business based on the best-selling book, The $1 Million Equation. If you love business, each episode reveals all of the core fundamental essentials for growth. Now, here's your host, Richelle Shaw.
All right, so I'm here again with another one of my friends. So this really should have been titled Richelle and Her Friends, because that's all this has been. Is I wanted to get all of my audience in all the world to get to know people that I think are absolutely fantastic and amazing, and that I've known for 13, 12 at least.
12 years, yeah. At least 12 years.
At least 12. Yeah, almost 13 years. That, so, how did we meet? So, yes, we met at a conference, which that's how it happens. I always meet boys at conferences, which is, I got a problem. But I also always end up with really smart people that if you're not smart, like, I just cut you off and I keep moving, right? When you are smart, I'm like, oh, okay, well, tell me more. Well, tell me about this. And I think we ended up at a bar with a crew of, 20, 30 people. And unfortunately, my friend Craig got stuck with the bill. And I don't know how you got stuck with the bill. But I know that we ended up lifelong friends forever. I don't even remember what city it was. I could tell you, like, the wooden chairs, like, if I close my eyes, but it was somewhere with a huge conference center. But we met then, we connected then, and then, like, we've been connected since. Like, it was okay, well, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Well, how can we help? Well, how can I help? And I'm just so grateful that you've come and decided to share some really cool stuff, how to nearly guarantee your advertising works every time. That's so awesome. I know that they want to hear that. But before we get into that, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about your background, not the 10-year story, but the 3-minute story, so that they can see how amazing you are.
Well, thank you. You're amazing too, and I am so blessed to have you as my friend, and everything you said, ditto. It's just, I'm a blessed man. Anyway, I am what I call a marketing performance strategist, and that really comes from my philosophy of helping people who are already doing marketing, whoever doing something, get better results for the same time, money, and effort they're already spending. So if they're advertising, it's like, how can we make that ad run better? Sometimes it's a small change, sometimes it's a big change, sometimes it's not doing it at all, but it's just like, let's make changes. Let's test is really what it comes down to. So I'm the king of testing things and also uncovering things that they don't realize that they have, like what we call marketing assets, things in their business that could either be producing profit or contributing to profit. So I have been good at that. I also fall into this world of direct marketing and direct response marketing. So I believe everything should have, should be measurable, should have a call to action, should have a compelling, irresistible reason for responding, should speak to a very specific person, that sort of thing. And that's where you and I kind of met in that world. And so, what I do is I work one-on-one with people, but I also work in a group format, and that is how I get most of my clients. So you think of the Shark Tank example. I gather a bunch of people in a room, and I look for people who got a business that I might want to work with, and then, if it's right, then we create equity agreements and long-term relationships and things like that. So it's kind of cool. I love what I do.
Yeah, because you get to do multiple things, I always love to talk to you about all the different types of businesses, because it's never just like one specific niche. You've got a hypnotist, and then there's a psychiatrist, and then a big, like that guy with the big things and I don't know what you do with them, but it's the one that always comes to Vegas, that has the
Les.
Yeah.
No, he's a vendor to the concrete industry.
Okay, all right. I knew it was some big thing.
Yeah. But guess what? The strategies that we use for him are the same that I use for the hypnotherapist.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah.
Right. Well, see, because I believe that that's true. The strategies that I used in the telephone business, I used with the OBGYN. The same one that I used with the backyard court guy, that got to the million, and the same ones that I used with the ophthalmologist, same things. It's the principles don't change. It's just the who changes sometimes, and I think that most people get overwhelmed by trying to talk to everybody instead of just talking specifically to their who. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's really what this conversation is all about today. Is really about why people have problems with getting results from their advertising. And I call these people, and I've heard it said before, but people really become what they call advertising victims. And it happens a lot with people who get approached by ad reps. Think of the local paper who, in fact, I had breakfast today with a guy who sells for a local paper. Now, I would never advertise in that paper. I love him. I love the people who advertise with him. But for most of my clients, I would not recommend that they advertise in that paper, So it's because there's a reason for that. It's like, you have to ask yourself certain questions about whether that's the right place. But most people kind of fall into that trap of not doing their homework in advance and kind of, listening to the rep. The rep has to pay his bills. He has a car payment. He has a house payment. He has to feed his family. And chances are, not in the case of the man that I know today, he's been with the same paper and the same guy for a long time, but there's a high turnover in the ad sales business. And so you got someone who's going to be there for 2 or 3 months, and then once their salary ends and now they have to work on commission only, they're gone. Yeah. So you're listening to somebody who may or may not be trained and an expert in advertising, and you're giving over your money. The problem is, does the advertising work or not? Probably not if you're not an expert at that.
Right. So he's an expert at sales, but they're not an expert at advertising.
Right. And I have a couple of examples of that. Number one, as I used to sell local advertising way back about 23 years ago for a local paper. And my editor would send me out and say, go get the advertising. But I was already trained in this direct response advertising. So I was very careful about, designing the ads. And of course, the editor says, no, you do it, it doesn't look right. It doesn't, And again, you go into businesses and, you ask, it's like, you'd be perfect in this paper. And they're like, I've already spent $800 this month and it's not working and blah, blah, blah. And it's, of course, because number one, you haven't asked the right questions. You don't even know who's reading the paper. And, you don't have a clear, irresistible reason for responding. It's like, so, I've encountered those people on a regular basis who still to this day continue to tell me advertising doesn't work. And again, a lot of people get what they call junk mail in their mailbox, and they said, I just throw it away. And there's a reason for that, I have another mastermind client who, paid me a lot of money to be in the mastermind, several $1,000s per year, who we teach direct response principles. And the direct response principle means it must be at least a measurable call to action. It's meaning we know that this ad, wherever they call or go to on the website, we know that they came from that ad, right? Let's just say that's the most simple way we can do this. Well, she advertised to get approached by an ad rep to advertise on a bench on a golf course, like the 16th hole. And it was just a picture of her and a headline and a phone number, but the phone number was a general phone number, and there was no irresistible reason to call. When I saw it, it was just like, she was in the note business, the real estate note business, and it just said something very simple related to real estate notes. I'm like, will people really know what this is? And, and again, it would cost her $1,000 to do. $1,000. And I'm like, I could have made that $1,000 stretch so far and get exactly into the hands of the people that you really, truly want to do business with,
Right.
And again, she lost the grant. She never got one response from that ad. And then the concrete vendor that we just talked about, right? Every year he does a trade show out, at least one trade show out in Vegas, World of Concrete. And at the last minute, getting bombarded by the host of the trade show, who has a magazine, and said, your ad is going to be seen by 20,000 people, and so I have a deal for you, right? Nobody ever goes to that. Nobody has ever called from that ad. Nobody has ever looked at it. Whatever is called for it. I designed the ad myself. I wrote the ad, and I only did it after the fact. I said, why didn't you talk to me before you spent the money?
Yeah.
Okay, let's make the best of it. Not one click, not one call, all measurable, but it didn't work. I said, stop doing that. For that same money, we can do a direct mail to the exact decision makers and give them a compelling, irresistible reason to come to the booth with the piece in hand. And then they'll be happy they were there, And we can measure that by everybody who came to that. So, that's what I mean by being an advertising victim. It's like if you're not educated and you're just spending money willy-nilly, because somebody told you, hey, this is a great place, your competitors are here. The competitors are naive too. They're ignorant too. Yes. If they're not doing their homework, it's just because my competitor's there, Now, there is a concept by which that, I think Dan Kennedy called follow that car, right? If someone is successfully advertising month after month, year after year, then there's something to say about that. But when you can look at an ad and say, where's the headline? Where's the who are they speaking to? What's the irresistible offer? Where's the, how are they tracking the phone number? That's their general number. How do they know the ad's coming from here? No deadline, no, all these little things. And then you got to say, well, maybe they were suckered in by the ad rep.
Well, and I think it happens all the time because they buy it because it's cheap, right? You said it when you were talking about the other guy. That's where I see that it happens most of the time. And then they burn through it and are convinced that advertising doesn't work. Well, okay, where did you buy the ad? Oh, on the bench, on hole 16, on the golf course. Okay, wait, there's nothing about that makes sense, but it makes sense to her, right? Because the ad rep is going, oh, the only people that play golf are people with money. And they are, okay, but wait, do they want it?
Right.
Do they want it? And is there an offer on there? Some core fundamentals that needs to be in every ad. How about, tell me about some core fundamentals. You kind of just glazed over them a little bit, but I know that our audience, some of them aren't really clear about what needs to be in every single marketing piece. Whether you pay for it or not, you're going to pay to print it, right? Even if it's flyers and you're dropping it off,
Thank you so much for listening to my passion project and the $1 Million Equation podcast. Love what you're hearing? If you like it, I love it. So click the subscribe button to get each week your new favorite episode.
So it all needs you said a headline. So what else does it need besides a headline, a powerful?
Well, it's a simple 100-step process. No, just kidding. It's really just three things that you have to think about. So the headline would contribute to one of these aspects, but let's just start with the who. It's like, who's the target market? So think of a triangle, and I call it the critical marketing triangle, because if you're missing any one of these, you really risk poor results in any of your marketing and advertising. So let's just talk about the market. Who is the best, most ideal person for your product or service, or your whatever problem you solve, to reach? So you think it's, if you're local, is it geographic, is it demographic, is it by affinity, is it is it by gender, is it by age range, whatever. It's like you got to know exactly who it is that you're speaking to.
Yeah.
The second thing you have to think is, what's that message? What is it that's going to grab their attention and stop them in their tracks? So if you're a plumber and it could be as simple as got plumbing problems. It could be as is your water heater protected for the winter? It could be main lines are breaking all over Los Angeles. It's time to check yours. I mean, it could be whatever the process is. Think about what's in the news, what's in their minds, what are they thinking about right now at this time in their life. So it's got to be a message that speaks to them, or it could be something unique. It could be something that nobody else is offering, and all of a sudden this thing is curiosity based. It's like, I want to know more about this. And the last thing, and the last choice that it should be done, which is complete opposite of what most people do, and that's the media. It's like, how is your marketing message reaching this target market? So in the case of advertising, it's generally the ad rep from the local newspaper, from a local magazine, from a local website. Could be Yelp. Yelp is a big one that happens all the time. But it's, so most people are choosing this media first, but there's lots of media. Like I just kind of explained about the concrete vendor. It's like, you're spending money on advertising that we can track that no one person has clicked on the link. That means no one's seen the ad. It has not interested one person. So how can we get this actually in the hands? If our job is to get it in, let's say, in the hands of the CEO of the ready mix company, it's like, how can we do that? Well, let's do a direct mail piece.
Right.
And let's make it create, not just a personal, we could do a personal letter, but how can we make it so that they want to open it? And what if we spent just a little bit more and had a little sample of what his product actually learned, and he has to open it up and pull out the letter? It's like, let's make sure that the money that we're spending is getting to the people, getting this message to the people that we want, and that are most likely to buy our product in the end.
Yeah.
So
I love that, especially because I think it shows, just like you said, that not one person clicked the link, because now we can track all those things.
Right.
And it's not that we didn't think that it was a great ad inside of the magazine. The problem is that the magazine, the trade show magazine, didn't do its part, right? So maybe they printed 100,000 of them, but they're in the trash can in the back.
Right.
Maybe they gave them out, but they gave them out to everybody and not the CEOs. It didn't go in the actual vendor bag, right? There's a lot of things that have to happen with the piece once you give it to them. And all we're saying is, I want to track it to make sure that it works. Right. Doesn't mean that your magazine sucks. It just may not be to my target market. That's all that I'm saying. So even yesterday, I still buy media for one of my clients, and I was going through. We're currently buying TV, right? And so he's on TV all the time, so it's hard for me to buy TV, because I'm like, well, why? You guys, this other station calls him all the time, and he's on there for free. So why should I buy from you? And so they gave me a couple of things that for me to consider, but I said, okay, listen, here's the deal. If he's on there, then I get to write the question. I'm going to control everything about this instead of allowing them to control. If I got to pay, right? I'm writing all the questions. I'm media training him. I'm getting him ready so that so you need to make sure that your host is ready. So I even picked the host. I said, it can't be her, it can't be him, it's got to be this gal over here, because I've heard her interview and I know that she's ready, right? That's what we do, but that's not what normally happens. So I had another client who already had this TV deal, and so she calls me and says, oh yeah, well, I'm on TV, you gotta, this is what I'm paying. And so I go and I watch the segment, and I'm like, okay, well, that did nothing. Oh, I said, did you write those questions? Oh, no, I didn't know I could write the questions. So anything that you are paying for, you get to decide how you want it out in the world, right? You get to decide, and you get to hold their feet to the fire. Now, don't tell me, how about those ad reps? Do they like you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm very careful about what I say in front of them. I'm just saying make smart decisions. So one of them was a sponsor of the summit actually the last 2 years. And I'm just very clear. I said, look, some places are better than others. Just because someone approaches you doesn't mean you need to or you should advertise it. Just do your homework. I'm very polite about it because I run across them a lot. And I've actually done training for their organization. So
okay.
Yeah,
so that may not work.
Yeah.
But I'm also the rep that called was, I am the money honey. So I'm on there all the time. And so that's how I know who's the one and who's not the one. And so it wasn't as yes, I have to tiptoe, but I'm also just direct. And I think that they know it, but I also use that as leverage to get a better deal.
Yeah. Well, and that's, all PR and all media buying is relationships anyway. So if you're going to use a regular resource or regular media, make sure you nurture that relationship and make sure they know that you know what you're doing, or you have someone on your team who knows what you're doing, because that you'll get more respect and you'll get treated better, and you probably better pricing as well because of that. So you got to be in control of your own stuff. Even if you're not the one doing it, you got to know what the heck's going on.
Sure. Talk a little bit about, because we said a headline and you said who, so this isn't what we had kind of planned to talk about, but you're my friend, and I like to pick your brain too.
Yeah, thank you.
So when you are writing headlines, what's like your favorite go-to? Like, do you go in a room and shut the door to make sure that you're in the right space to get inside the who? Especially since you handle, lots of clients that do totally different things. Like, how do you do that? How do you work through that?
I think about, number one, I have to know exactly who I'm speaking to. So, it's, when I'm dealing with the concrete vendor, I got to know, is it the mechanic we're talking to? Is it the CEO or the CFO is concerned about pricing? Is it the drivers who are going to be using the product? So you got to know exactly who you're speaking to so that message speaks to them. And in some cases, it might be multiple. Sometimes there's one going to the CEO, one's going to CFO, one's going to the buyers, one's going to the mechanic. And it's going to have a similar message, but the problem, the headline is going to address a different problem that each one of them have a responsibility of fixing. Wow. So we've done that. I mean, in our emails, because we can segment, we were using Entreport, so we segmented by title. And so, we have that message going out. The subject line is a headline, right? And then leading to that opening sentence, it's like, so it captures their attention and leads them. Whenever you're writing an ad piece, a sales letter, or whatever, there should be a slippery slope. One sentence should lead to the next, to the next, to the next to keep the interest, right? And at the very least, the subheadline should lead you down the dual readership path, because sometimes people just don't read every word that you write. Sometimes they just want to. Oh, my God. Well, I wrote my book that way. I don't know. You have a copy of my book, right? Every left-hand page has a quote, and it's like from a note that I took from all the seminars I've taken in my life that I just agree with. And I've gotten more business from people just reading that left side of the page versus reading the articles and the chapters in the book. Sure. So people do skim. Yeah. So you got to consider that. And sometimes those subheadlines can be one of the headlines that you actually wrote out in advance. So one of those tactics that I use, or whatever tactics we'll call it, is I write out a bunch, and I write out like 20 to 100, depending on how long the pieces that I'm writing, how much I'm going to be writing, because sometimes these things will go on future emails or future squeeze pages or sales pages or whatever. So always keep those available if you're writing them for a client or if you're writing them for yourself, especially if you really do know those pain points or the ambitions of the people that you are trying to sell to. Yeah. So, that message has to really, the other thing that that, sometimes it's a pain, sometimes it's a problem. I'm having this problem, and that creates urgency. So those are great. That's great if you can be that unique solution, and you can communicate in a way that stops them dead in their tracks, and they just say, "This is exactly what I've been thinking about," or it's over time. But what about the person who's not thinking about it, who happens to be a lover? So I'm a golfer. I love to golf, and my clubs are still in Vegas. I'm getting them in a week and a half, but I'm going to come back and golf. But I love anything that I see on Instagram, everything I see on Facebook, any magazine that I see, the headlines, just like Cosmo, those stick out at me. I'm drawn to them. So I'm not necessarily in a painful position that I need new golf stuff, but I want it. I want the best club. I want the best shirt or shoes or, stylish things. So it's like you also have to think about that. It's like, hey, golf lovers. I mean, it really has to speak out. It's like, hey, intermediate golf lovers. All right, that's me. I'm not a great golfer. I'm a medium. So, but, you got to call out the people that you're speaking to, either by attention, call them out directly, or, make sure that thing in the headline really speaks to what they love, that irrational passion, if you will, or that thing that, by behavior they have searched for before. You can do that a lot online. You can do that in mailing lists and such like that. So, that's really the best way to write headlines, is just know as much about these people as you can and speak to them as if they say, like, as if we were sitting here just talking to each other. It's like, hey, Richelle. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love it because I think, that part of this summit that has been so amazing for me is when I watch you guys just do your magic, right? And so we start at the 30,000 feet view, right? And like, oh, okay. And I think lots of people might have heard about the marketing triangle and that sort of thing. But when I hear you like break down your process right there, like I like totally geek out, right? Like it's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Tell me again, wow, 20, 100 and well, that's why you're great at it, and that's why they pay you for that, right? So many are like they write some just how to and they're done, or the ultimate guide in blank and they're done, instead of like this process of testing and really going down through what's going to optimize everything that I'm doing, because whether you are buying any advertising or not, right? All of the principles that you are talking about is going to help them build their basic business, from a landing page to a squeeze page, whatever you want to call it, your website. It should all be headline driven. And if it's not, then why should I read the next line? Right? Why should I read the next line if it's not? So several folks and I will, because we've been doing this a minute, right? We are of a particular age now. And just a little bit older than some. And the biggest challenges that I see is that they haven't learned this principle. They haven't learned that you have to continuously pull in your prospect, or your existing customer, whatever it is. You have to engage them at every line. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to lose them. And even the double readership path, 15 years ago, I learned about a double readership path, right? So that, you have to do these things. So I was giggling as I'm in a marketing group, of course, online, and some of these different groups. And one of the gals said, I think that those silly, long sales letters are dead. Yeah. And it's like,
yeah.
I just want to reach through and just,
right.
it doesn't work for you.
Right.
But for the person who needs more information, you want to give them everything they need to make the decision. You're not just writing long just to have a ton of words, or to say, oh, I need 600 words on the page. That's not it. You're writing it to answer their objections. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. However long it takes.
However long it takes,
Right.
But I had a professor, because I wasn't excited when I was in college. And I was a history major, so of course, everything is writing a book, basically. And I'd be like, okay, how long does it have to be? And how many sources? And he'd be like, really? Enough so you can tell the story. And I'm like, ah. Yeah, but that's what it actually comes down to. And those sub-headlines, right, is to get them to the next chunk of the story. This one of yes, you heard that it's easy, but before, you jump in, let me caution you. Okay, well, that's the mystique. That's going to get me to read this next part, as I go through. And then, you've called me out up here, but I've got a lot to get to in order for me to go to my wallet and take out my credit card. And I think people forget that piece and how powerful that understanding your who in that marketing triangle is. Like, so you've done who your market is. You've talked about the message. And so I know that you've got like a recipe for marketing and advertising success so that we can nearly guarantee that the advertising works every time. I think people are afraid to spend money because they think it's spending instead of investing because they don't know how to do this. So give me your recipe.
Well, again, it comes down to having the right market with the right message in the right media. So, think about if you don't know your market, say, I think everybody deserves needs my product or service. And, if I may, just one more example, and this will tie into this market thing, is that, Perfect. When I started out as a consultant, because the reason I fell into consulting was because I had lots of entrepreneurial success. I had lots of, making money as a kid, helping friends with that, and someone says, oh, you should be a consultant. So I became a consultant.
Right.
But I didn't know how to be a consultant. And so guess what most people do? They join the chamber. And I joined the chamber. And my market tended to be independent professionals, consultants, other consultants. And when I went to the chamber, guess what? Not a lot of other consultants. So guess what? There's one of those pieces of the triangle that are missing. My market isn't there. Okay? It might not have been the best media. The media wasn't right for this particular market. And my message went on deaf ears. Okay? So someone says, where it would be good for you is the Institute of Management Consultants. They have a meeting over in West LA. There's about 100 members there. You should check it out. Guess what? I go there. There are 93 people at the meeting. I said, I have a 3-step plan that'll get you more clients, nearly guaranteeing your success. I wasn't taking my own advice prior to that, but
right.
But it was implementing these very specific things that we're talking about. But I said I have a 3-step, recipe for success for training new clients, nearly guaranteed. If you'd like to know more information, I have a tip sheet right up here, and I'd love to give it to you. Now, this is way before the internet. I mean, maybe it was around with AOL and those types of things.
Right.
So I just gave them a typewritten sheet that had a little, fill in the blank thing, and it worked far better than going to the chamber. Now, I still belong to the chamber to be locally involved and all that. But I got much more success when I had a very specific market. I had a very clear message. They wanted more clients, and they wanted a simple way to do it. And I used the right media. The media was being in a room full of those people. Now, again, the only thing, again, the second best thing would be a newsletter that they devour every month or a podcast these days or a video show or a TV show that they eagerly watch. And, but I was there in the room and I got to shake hands with the masters,
Sure.
So that's what I mean. So you got to have that recipe. You got to know who your market is. My market at that time was management consultants, marketing consultants, business consultants. And in that one event, I got 93% of them as my market. Well, 100% of them, there were 93 there, versus going to a chamber networking event where there was one other consultant who didn't spend any money on advertising, didn't care, was just going to go word of mouth and all that stuff, So that's what I mean. So know your market. Know your market. Know your marketing message. My marketing message was I have a 3-step plan for getting more clients. They wanted more clients. Okay. What is the problem that you solve? What is the unique way that you can solve it? Or how is the unique way you can position it that nobody else can, does, or will do present it that way, right? What do you offer that no one else can, does, or will? And Dan Kennedy has this copyrighted question, but I tell everybody about it because I just think it's perfect. It's that the prospect is always going to be asking the person who's looking at your ad, why should I, your prospect, choose to do business with you versus any and other option available to me, including doing nothing at this time? Right. It's a brilliant question. Yeah. And so if you can't be clear as to in stopping people in their tracks, the people that you are most ideal to want to do business with, if you don't stop them in their tracks, and you don't consistently stop them in their tracks, it's not going to work. You risk poor results. Yeah. So, and lastly, that media, choose the right media. Don't be a victim. Don't succumb to an ad rep because you're friends with them, because they said that your competitors are there, because they said I have a great deal for you. Don't do that. Do your homework in advance. If you know your who, where are they most likely to congregate? Where are you going to find them in the best way possible? I would say affordably first to check out to make sure that media works, but then if it works, then, spend as much money as possible to get that customer. And there are ways to overspend to acquire that customer to make up that money during the process. And again, Absolutely. Think lifetime value as well. Say, what's the lifetime value of the customer? You just mentioned it. It's that a lot of people are afraid to spend money on advertising. Number one, because they don't see it as an investment, but because they think I'm losing money on the sale. Well, there are actually very, very simple ways to make money on the initial sale, let alone think of the lifetime value. That person coming in for one $10 sale is actually worth $100 or $1,000 down the line. So you got to think about that. How much did it cost you to acquire that $1,000 sale? And again, think about how am I going to get my message mostly across. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. I hope I communicated that.
No, you did. You did. It's just that of course, the phones go crazy all the time. But absolutely. And I've tried to beat this over the head with folks all the time, I get it, especially, from clients. They'll send people my way and I'll go, okay, this makes absolutely no sense, but let me ask you, do you want to advertise here? Well, that was my wife's friend and that'll help her. Okay, so you want to? All right, here, do this. It's not going to work, but at least if somebody were to see it, there may be a chance. But this is, I had lots of folks like to do these TV shows right now, and they'll come in, I want to have you on my show. Okay, well, where's your show play? Oh, well, it plays on the Air Force network, and there's 50,000 families. Okay, great. But are any of them in Las Vegas? Right. Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, no. They're in Guam. Okay, well.
Right.
That doesn't work for us, and I said, but you can go on the show if you think we need to practice your, you answering questions, but.
Right. It's that you be clear about what the purpose is. It's not about, hey, you're not helping me, but if you need help, I'll help you.
There you go.
One thing you said earlier, and again, I want to reiterate, I got off on a tangent, so I forgot what I was going to say. But, most people are afraid to spend money on advertising or marketing or direct mail or whatever, but they'll go out and spend $60 to $100 on a meal or on something, frivolous on a regular basis. But spend $100 on a direct mail test, that will generate revenue for them, maybe even ongoing, they're hesitant to do. Or like all these people that are spending $2,000 on the next shiny object and then afraid to spend money to do even a simple test on Facebook or to do a direct mail test, so get over yourself, get help if you need it. See Richelle, see me, talk to anybody on the series and let them help you do it right. If you don't know how to do it, ask for help. That's all you have to do.
Yes.
Hey, you, we are so grateful that you are part of MDE Nation. Are you enjoying this episode? Let me know what you think, especially if you have a question. I would love to answer it personally. You can go to RichelleShaw.com/podcast to get more information about each episode. Or Or to be reminded of the MDE weekly assignment and so much more, go to RichelleShaw.com/podcast.
Well, here's the question I ask everybody. There's two. The first one is, tell me about your favorite client ever.
My favorite client happens to be the concrete vendor that I'm talking about. He's number one. He's one of the best people I've ever met in my life. He's just one of the kindest people. He's a grand master in Hapkido. So he's a grand master in a martial art. So you can imagine he's this big man who's got a giant heart, and he's quiet. If you mess with him, he'll mess you up. But but he is one of the kindest, most wonderful people in the world. And he's not only a client, but he's a friend. He'll do anything for me. But he's just got this drive. He's got this entrepreneurial drive, and even though he's stubborn, it won't work. He's willing to listen to me and say, "Okay, Craig, you tell me what to do, we'll do it." At least willing to test it. It's like, so I love that kind of client. And how I acquired him was he came into my group, and again, that group is a community, it's a membership. But what I'm looking for is people that I want to work with. And after 3 years of him being a member and him being the serious student, I said, let's cut the crap. Let's work together. Stop trying to pretend that you're going to implement everything we're doing, and let's work together. And so wonderful man, and just a great relationship. Now, I don't work directly with him as in that client arrangement, but projects come up every once in a while, and he's in my mastermind, and he's one of my biggest advocates, and he tells everybody about me. So, God love him. He's one of the best people out there. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. All right. And then the last question is, tell me what the audience needs to do to crush the rest of the year. What do they need to do?
I always say the secret to marketing success is making better, more strategic marketing decisions. And that starts with kind of what we just talked about, the critical marketing triangle. It's like, make sure you're making good marketing decisions. Don't spend time on things that aren't working. Now, you and I have had this, we've heard this thing before about diversity creates stability. And that is, you have to be doing multiple things simultaneously, and everything will be kind of like a mutual fund. If you know anything about the financial market and mutual fund, you have different risks of companies in the market. Some are very strong, some are kind of weak. They're all giving off a little bit different, yield or result. And that's what's going to happen. When you go to a networking event, you might meet one person that week. The next week, you might meet two. The next week, you might get 0. When you do a direct mail piece, you might get 10 responses, or you'll get 5 responses, or you get, everything's going to be working to different degrees. But you got to have multiple things working simultaneously. The other thing is, don't get suckered in by someone trying to sell you something. Stay away from shiny objects. Shiny objects include the media, people coming out and trying to sell you media. But, just stick to one thing and ask for help. Again, all the experts on this series right now, you could ask any one of them for help. Seek out Richelle, who's smart enough to put this thing together. But, it's like, don't think you have to do it all by yourself. Don't be cheap. It's really kind of, if you're willing to go spend $60 or $100 on a dinner that's forgettable, it's like, think about what you can do with $100 or $1,000 to get that repeatable income on a regular basis and create equity in your business and all that. So
do it all. Ah, that was fantastic. Yay! 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 Ladies and gentlemen, my friend Craig Levine.
Valine.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I like to just do that as a joke. That's what I tell everybody else. And then I go, Valine with a V, not Levine. He's not the Jewish guy. He's the other.
I'm the Irish guy.
Right.
the ish guy. Anyway.
The ish guy. The partier guy. The my true friend guy. And I am so grateful that you are here sharing the message with everybody.
No.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.